From the scandal that cost her a crown to a pair of rocky marriages, Vanessa Williams has weathered some storms, but she continues to bounce back. In 2012, Ugly Betty star Vanessa Williams went public with her life story. Alongside her mother Helen, Williams wrote a memoir titled You Have No Idea, A Famous Daughter, Her No-Nonsense Mother, and How They Survived Pageants, Hollywood, Love, Loss, and Each Other, in which she recounts a particularly devastating moment from her childhood. When she was just 10 years old, she was sexually abused by an older female family friend during a trip. At the time, Williams didn't fully comprehend what occurred and wasn't able to confide in her parents. In fact, she kept the secret from her mother until the two co-authored the memoir. Helen Williams told ABC News, "I had no idea that had happened." But in retrospect, it kind of put into place some of her reactions during her preteen years. On Oprah's Masterclass, Vanessa explained how the abuse impacted her life, saying, "I think had that not happened in my life, and I had an opportunity to have a normal courtship with a boyfriend at 16, there wouldn't have been that shame that was always haunting me."
I think it made me more sexually promiscuous and more curious at a younger age than I should have been.
When Williams was a high school senior, she discovered she was pregnant. She and her boyfriend made an appointment with Planned Parenthood to terminate the pregnancy. In her 2012 memoir, Williams writes, "It was all so scary to me. If we had been brave, we would have gotten married and had the child. But we weren't even brave enough to tell my parents. The tragic twist was that we had always talked about marriage and kids, but not in high school." Looking back on the moment in a 2012 interview with Nightline, Williams called pregnancy frightening, saying, "I knew in high school that's something that I was not prepared to do or fight or struggle with." The experience helped shape Williams's pro-choice stance while competing in Miss America. In 1983, Vanessa Williams was crowned Miss America. She was the first Black woman to hold the title. The then college student wowed the audience and judges with her beauty, grace, and maturity. The 20-year-old looked ecstatic as she was given her crown and sash. But the joy would soon be overshadowed by hate. There was racist backlash across the country, with many outraged that the pageant's color barrier had been broken. In addition to being subjected to media scrutiny, Williams received threats and racist hate mail.
Deneen Graham, who was Miss North Carolina, she had a cross burned on her front lawn because she was Black, representing North Carolina.
The threats were so vicious that the FBI offered her protection. Williams told ABC News, "I had sharpshooters on the top of the buildings when I had my first parade. In one of the parades down south, usually they have Miss America in a convertible. I had to be inside." However, not all reactions were negative. Many people were overjoyed by her win.
Older Black women thought they'd never see it in their lifetime, and some people would cry.
The crown and the wave of hate weighed heavy on the young beauty queen, but her family stood beside her. In 2020, she told Extra, "My parents were not only the ones receiving the death threats and having a dialogue with the FBI, but trying to allow me to have some kind of safe haven so I wouldn't be terrified." In 1984, Williams' reign as Miss America came to a shocking end. A year after her historic win, a scandal erupted when nude photos of the beauty queen were published in Penthouse without her consent. Williams posed for these photos when she was 19 years old. At the time, she worked at a photography studio where a photographer invited her to pose nude with another model. At the time, she told People, "I was reluctant, but since he assured me that I would be the only one to see them and I would not be identifiable in the photographs, I agreed." But the photographer didn't keep his end of the bargain. When Williams became Miss America, he cashed in on her newfound fame by selling the photos to the racy magazine. Unsurprisingly for the Times, the organization found her photos were not a good representation of the wholesome Miss America brand. Williams was told she had 3 days to give back her Miss America title, the first winner in pageant history to be asked to hand back her crown.
I do officially relinquish my title as Miss America 1984 to the Miss America pageant.
The pageant released a statement saying, "For 10 months, Vanessa Williams has served the pageant and the title of Miss America well, but we must make it clear that we cannot and do not condone her actions." The Miss America scandal didn't end with Williams losing her crown and title. Her career and reputation took a major hit. In You Have No Idea, she recalled the public bashing she received from high-profile comedians like Joan Rivers, writing, "Just when I figured she'd exhausted every possible Vanessa Williams joke, she'd have a new slew of them. I had to learn not to take the attacks so personally." But the jabs and misogynistic barbs hurt. Williams recalled confronting comedian Chris Rock over bits from an HBO comedy special, writing, "There were Vanessa Williams jokes that went viral before there was such a thing as going viral. But the jokes and late-night monologues were just the beginning." Following the Penthouse incident, Williams lost lucrative endorsement deals with companies like Gillette and Kellogg's. Auditions were few and far between because directors no longer took her seriously. In an interview with Yahoo Entertainment, the actor recalled crushing an audition for a Broadway production, only to lose out on the role because of the scandal.
It took every ounce of credibility and talent that I had and wiped it out.
Williams summed it up in her memoir, writing, "All in all, I lost about $2 million in endorsements and countless other offers that would have come my way when I finished my reign." In 2015, the Miss America organization was finally ready to make things right with the Williams. Over 3 decades after she was forced to return her crown, the organization extended an invitation to Williams to attend Miss America 2016. She was initially hesitant to accept. She told ABC News, "I had to talk to my mom, and I said, listen, they invited me back." And she said, "Well, I have a lot of issues." And we talked it out, and I talked to them and said there was a lot of things that were not addressed and not said. Williams did go, and Chief Executive Sam Haskell offered her and her mother a heartfelt apology during the ceremony, saying, "Though none of us currently in the organization were involved then, on behalf of today's organization, I want to apologize to you and to your mother, Miss Helen Williams. I want to apologize for anything that was said or done that made you feel any less than the Miss America you are and the Miss America you always will be." Williams's mother, who was in the audience, was visibly emotional during the speech.
On behalf of my family, my mother in particular, I'm so honored to be back.
As part of Williams's return to the pageant stage, she performed her song, "Oh, How the Years Go By." Williams is known for her jaw-dropping beauty. However, given her time in pageants and working in front of the camera, it's not shocking to hear that she's dealt with body image issues and pressure to look a certain way. The actor recalled a meeting she had for the 1996 action film Eraser, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Williams had just given birth to her 3rd child when she got the role.
"The only way to give his witness a future is to erase her past."
In a 2019 episode of The Talk, she recalled, "I remember being asked by the producer, 'Well, we'd like you to lose some weight.' I literally went on a diet. I considered lipo just to be able to be on screen. I lost a lot of weight." The pressure to land roles isn't all that has driven her to try to lose a significant amount of weight. In 1997, the Grammy nominee detailed the breakdown of her marriage to Ramon Hervey II and how it impacted her physically, telling Ebony, "When I get nervous, I can't eat. People kept telling me how great I looked, but your clothes are falling off and you can't face another day. So I was looking my best when I was the most miserable." In 1987, Williams married her manager, Ramon Hervey II, after 2 years of dating. Hervey was a public relations mastermind who was instrumental in getting her career back on track. Together, they launched her successful singing and acting career. The couple had 3 children and looked like a picture-perfect family. But behind the scenes, their 10-year marriage was tumultuous. In 1997, Williams opened up about the relationship in an interview with Ebony magazine, admitting that her ex-husband had cheated with multiple women during their marriage. Williams explained, "It's one thing to forgive once, but when a pattern of behavior that is dangerous for my health, embarrassing and humiliating for me and my family, and I'm working my ass off, it's intolerable." As Williams continued to recover from the Miss America scandal, earning more money and fame, the dynamics of their marriage changed. In a 2019 interview with Glamour, she said, I think men marry who the woman is at that moment. They don't feel like she will ever change and can't handle it when she evolves. Ultimately, it was her views on divorce and fear of public humiliation that led her to stay in the unhappy marriage. After her 1997 divorce from Hervey, Williams began a romance with NBA champion Rick Fox. She told the New York Times that he instantly charmed her. Recalling, he said that, "If I don't marry you, I'm not going to marry anybody else." That was very comforting. The two married in 1999 and had one child together. According to Williams, her marriage to the Los Angeles Laker wasn't as intense as her marriage to Hervey, but the couple still had issues. The age gap weighed heavily on Williams. Fox was 6 years younger and in the prime of his career. Williams told Glamour, "When we got married, I was 36. At the time, I worried about being too old, even though I was still very young. He was in the NBA, which is basically another kind of show business. The relationship was long distance, which meant they were, in a way, leading separate lives." Williams recalled, "He was on the road or out in Los Angeles, and after our daughter was born, I was on the East Coast, raising 4 children and flying across the country every 2 weeks."
Chasing championships was the focal point for me, and so I didn't know how to balance being a husband and being a professional athlete.
They filed for divorce in 2004. In 2015, Williams married Jim Scripp, a businessman. In 2006, Williams' father, Milton Augustine Williams Jr., died unexpectedly at the age of 70. The former music teacher was in the Bahamas with his wife when he suffered an acute pancreatic infection. In an interview with grief expert David Kessler, Vanessa recalled, "By the time we got him back to New York City, he passed away in 3 days." Her father's passing left her shell-shocked, but in the midst of her grief, Vanessa found comfort in her father's accomplishments. In addition to being a beloved teacher, he was an accomplished saxophone player who taught Vanessa how to play the French horn and piano. Williams said, "Out of all the shock and the sadness of it, what gave me the most satisfaction was that so many people were touched by his life."
And when I realized what an impact he had made, my heart grew wider and wider. And I said, well, he was my dad.
Vanessa credits her father for setting a high bar for the men in her life, admitting to Glamour, "My father was my example of what I expected to find in a partner, and that's impossible for anyone to live up to." If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673.